Hello, welcome to West Suffolk College. I'm Rob Reynolds. I'm the chef here at Edmund's Restaurant, a part of the fantastic Culinary Arts Academy. So today we're going to be cooking a Valentine's dish, okay, so something to impress the other half. It's going to be a salmon fillet with some potato cakes and a broad bean of pea fricassee with some fresh mint in there, okay? This is all stuff that you're gonna have in the cupboards at home. If not, it's gonna be ingredients that you can source really easily, okay? So to start off with, just to go through some of the ingredients, we have some lovely salmon fillets here, okay? So with this, I've actually purchased a whole side of salmon, okay? What I try and avoid is going out to the supermarket and buying the individual fillets, or what we call a supreme, okay? For a couple of reasons. Number one, they don't always give you the best cut, I find. There's a lot of the belly meat left on there. You want to try and get stuff which has got more of the loin there, okay? And the other thing is as well, when we have a whole side, it's really easy just to take those scales off. Whereas the stuff that we buy in the individual vacuum packs generally have the scales left on there. We don't really want that. Unless, of course, you're not going to eat it with the skin, and then you don't have to worry. But I always say any fish is always good with that nice crispy skin. So we do a majority of that cooking, about 90% of it, or well, 80-90% of it on the skin before we then flip it over and then finish it off in the oven, okay? Other ingredients that we have is obviously for our potato cakes. So we need some flour, we have some spring onions, you could also use chives as well, it depends what the availability is. We've got some whole grain mustard, okay, and we also have some mashed potato. So the beauty of this recipe is that it's going to use leftovers, okay? So if you've had a nice sausage and mash the night before, keep that leftover mashed potato, it makes wonderful potato cakes, okay? The other thing that we have is the ingredients for our sauce. So, I say sauce, it's actually broad bean and pea fricassee, okay? So important, obviously we need some peas, and we need some broad beans. You'll see here that I'm actually using frozen. However, this recipe is a lot better if we can use fresh, okay? So we're now getting into that time of the year where we can start to grow our own broad beans and grow our own peas, okay? They're really simple vegetables to grow, okay? And also you get quite a good yield from them. The other thing that's nice and easy to grow, which goes quite well, as a little garnish, is some radish as well. Pop those in the ground and they'll come up in no time. You're talking a matter of 2 weeks really to get a good crop of radish. We also have obviously the butter, okay? For the sauce we have some white wine, we have some lemon juice, and we have some shallots, okay? So, time to crack on with the recipe. Okay, so to make our potato cakes, we have roughly 200 grams of mashed potato, leftover mashed potato, okay? Try not to use mashed potato which has had too much added to it, such as butter and cream, okay? What it might start to do is affect the texture of the cakes, and they might just sort of melt. We want it to want them to be nice and crispy, okay? In goes spring onions. So there's about 2 or 3 spring onions in there, quite finely chopped, okay? We have some whole grain mustard, so a little bit of heat, whole grain. It's got a little bit of vinegar in there as well, so it gives that nice sort of acidic taste. Okay, and really important is the flour. So about 2 tablespoons of flour, touch more for good luck, and then obviously seasoning. So because we're using potatoes, I always because we're using potato, I always say the best thing to do is a little bit of white pepper in there, okay? Salt also, really important, okay? And then it's really just a case of just giving that a little mix before we add an egg yolk. To help our potato cakes bind together, 1 egg yolk goes in. And then at this point, really want to give a good mix, and then what we're looking for is that to come together as one sort of whole mass, okay? So this is a bit where it can get a little bit messy, but it's going to be a lot easier if we just get our hands in there, okay? At this point as well, you can start to feel if it's a little bit too loose, okay? We can always add some extra flour to it. We don't want to go too heavy on the flour because we don't want that raw flour taste in there, okay? So it's almost like the texture of pastry that we have now. We're going to save some of our flour, so when it comes to the actual cooking, we just do a quick dusting in the flour. But what we have there is our potato cake mixture ready to go. Grab yourself a tray. Something we all have laying around the house is, maybe not this one in particular, but some sort of cake cutter, okay? If we pop that there, on the tray lined with some greaseproof, we want to take just a small amount of our potato cake mixture, okay, into a bowl, press it in there. This is just going to help give a bit more of a uniform shape, okay, as you can see. We don't have to be too specific with this because we can always shape them a little bit better when it comes to the actual cooking. Okay, so they go in there. At this stage here, we can pop those in the fridge and just chill them down a little bit. That will help just to firm those up. So they're going to be popped in the fridge. And then while we do that, we can start with our sauce. So the sauce is a pea and broad bean fricassee, okay? However, it's more of what we call a beurre blanc, okay? But with the addition of some stock in there as well. So today I'm going to use fish stock. You could use like a vegetable stock. You could even use a chicken stock. Just make sure it's something that's quite weak, not anything that's too salty, because as you reduce that down, it's just going to may become too salty. It will be a rich sauce though, and it will contain a lot of butter. This is probably the hardest part of the recipe. Okay, so to make our sauce, we're going to need a touch of olive oil in the pan, okay? Pop that onto the heat, quite a low heat. What we need to do is we need to take our shallots, okay, so finely diced. It doesn't necessarily need to be really finely diced. It could be just roughly chopped, okay? You'll see why as we carry on, but this will be sieved out, okay, so we'll just be left with the juices in the pan. That goes in, like I say, nice and low heat. We really don't want to colour these too much. We're just sweating them down. We can also, at this stage, add our peppercorns as well. So if you have a few peppercorns, just chuck those in there. There's about 5 to 6. And we have some fresh bay leaves also. So it's always good to tear these. They can release a little bit more flavour, okay? So like I say, this we're just gently sweating down, okay? This stage you want to add some salt. Okay. So sweating down just to soften. It's important at this stage as well that we have our butter ready to go. Okay, so the sauce it's quite it needs to be done quite quickly. I suggest that when we're doing it, we're only focusing on the sauce and not not cooking anything else. Okay. Once the sauce is made, you need to make sure you're going to store it in a place where it's quite warm. So by the side of the oven. What you don't want to do is just leave it anywhere too cold. The sauce might actually split out. We also add a little touch of cream in there. That will help stabilise that sauce as well. So nicely sweated down on a low heat. As you can see, there's no actual colour. Okay. You just want to get them sort of translucent. You can start to smell the onions cooking away. At this stage, we can take our white wine. So I'm going to add about 25 ml, okay? At this stage, what we need to do is reduce that right down to a thick sort of syrup content. So there's pretty much no wine left there. We want to burn off that alcohol, okay? So we're just left with a nice sweet flavour of the wine, not that sort of nasty alcohol flavour. we've now got to a stage where our shallots are really sweated down quite nicely. Okay, and we're only left with a very, very small amount of liquid there. Okay, so at this stage we can now add our stock. So as I said before, I suggest a fish stock. Okay. So you can see that this stock here has been made and then reduced and then chilled down, okay? So I'm adding roughly about 200 mils into there, okay? And again, this needs to reduce down as well. As it reduces, the flavour is going to intensify, okay? And then at that stage, we can pass it off, so we're just left with the liquid there. We've got no solids in there, no bay leaves, no shallots or peppercorns. We can also just turn the heat up a little bit. That will help that reduce a little bit quicker. As I say with this, you just want to be focusing on the sauce, okay? Okay, so we've now reduced our stock down with our wine and our shallots and our aromats in there, okay? At this stage, you're left with, I'd say, roughly about 100 ml there, okay? So it's been reduced by about half, okay? Then what we're going to do is just pass that through sieve or colander, so you've just left with the base of the sauce there, okay, which is the liquid. At this stage now, very important, what we need to do is we need to grab ourselves a whisk, okay, make sure we've got some butter, okay, nice and cold, been in the fridge, ice cold, and then this is what we call the emulsification process, okay. So we're going to add this back onto a very low heat just to bring it up, okay, and then 2 blocks of butter, small blocks of butter just to start with. They are going to go in. Make sure we have our whisk to hand, and then as soon as that butter goes in, it's just a case of whisking, okay. At this point, critical stage, we can't stop. You need to make sure that that butter is being fully incorporated into the sauce, okay? As soon as we get to a stage where that butter starts to melt, okay, and we can't see it anymore, we're then just going to take it off the heat, and now we can start to add more butter, okay? So I've gone in with another 3 cubes of butter there. Try not to make too much mess as we're vigorously whisking. Okay, what you're going to begin to notice is the sauce is going to thicken as well. Okay, what we can't do is just leave the butter to melt in the sauce. Okay, this is an emulsification. Like I say, this is the hardest part of the recipe. Everything else is pretty plain and simple to put together. Okay. So as you can see, we're now getting a nice velvety sauce, okay? And just as you see that last few bits of butter disappearing, we can add just a little bit more. It's quite a rich sauce as well, guys. So you'll notice when it comes to cooking the salmon, I won't use any butter, okay? It will just be oil. The richness is already in the sauce. So a few more pieces of butter to go in. And as you can see, this is now starting to thicken up quite nicely. A little technique that we often use is to add just a touch of cream in there, which I'll show you in just a second. That will also help stabilise the sauce as well. Okay. If you're starting to realise that the sauce isn't, the butter isn't starting to melt, you can always pop it back onto the heat. What's really important is we don't want to boil this sauce. Okay. So once we've got to this stage, I'm going to go back on the heat just for a minute or two, just to help that butter melt. Okay. So just the last 2 pieces of butter go in. Okay. And as you can see, that sauce has thickened really nicely. Okay, it's nice and glossy. Okay, so we have no butter lumps left in there. So at this stage, you want to take about a tablespoon or slightly less of cream. Okay, just whisk that through. That will help stabilise the sauce. Okay. At this stage, a wedge of lemon, just to squeeze a lemon in there. That'll give it a little bit of acidity. Okay, and really important is where now we want to just taste that sauce. Okay, so you can see it's just going to coat the back of the spoon. Okay, like I say, quite a rich sauce. And just to finish that off, we want to pop some peas in and our broad beans. And the one herb that goes incredibly well with peas, broad beans, is some nice fresh mint. So this mint here, as you can see, it's the term we use is a chiffonade. So we stack the leaves up and then we roll them and then we just slice through at once. The reason we do that is we just want to make sure that we keep the freshness and all the flavour of the mint in the leaves and not all over our chopping board. The last thing a chef wants to see is a load of, is people just chopping up herbs and making a right mess of it. Okay, nice and clean. That goes in. That'll add a little bit of freshness to it as well. Okay. So we mix that through, and that's our sauce there, ready to go. So our sauce is ready. The only other two elements that we just need to finish off is the potato cakes, and then last of all, we're just going to fry off that salmon. Okay. So the potato cakes have been in the fridge. They've chilled down. They've set. Okay. So they're in good shape. Just want to take the last little bit of flour that we had and just roll them through. Okay, like I said, at this stage you can sort of do a little bit of a reshape as well if you need to. Okay, so you want a nice uniform shape. Okay, try not to get them too fat, so something sort of like that thickness. Okay, I've got a pan on here ready to go, just on a medium heat. So you're going to add a touch of olive oil to that. Okay, so that's our potato cakes ready to go. Olive oil into the pan. Okay. Allow that just a few seconds to heat. Like I say, medium heat will do well. At this stage, we also want to make sure that our oven is set to 180 degrees. Okay, so that's ready for our cakes to go in, potato cakes to go in, and also just to finish off our salmon. Okay. So we have a little bit of heat in the pan. Okay. What we want to hear is that nice frying noise. Okay, well, what we don't want to do is pop it into the pan, okay, and then just let them melt away. Okay, so we've got a little bit of smoke coming there from the oil, so this is the perfect time just to pop those in. First one in, second one in. Okay, and you can see already starting to fry at the bottom there. Okay, and then make sure we have a tray ready so that we can transfer them onto the tray ready to go into the oven. Okay, at this stage we want to just have a little peek at the bottom there. You can see we've got some nice colour already coming, which is good on both of those. So we just flip them over, looking good so far. Okay. Colour either side, straight onto the tray, straight into the oven. While they're in the oven cooking, that's when we can start with our salmon. We've now got our potato cakes in the oven, very top of the oven. Okay, we want to try and get them quite crispy. And now we're just going to move on to our salmon, which is our last element of the dish. So make sure we're removing any excess scales, okay, that we might have there. And then really important at this stage, we give a good seasoning, okay? So that includes the skin as well. Like I said at the start, we need to make sure that skin goes down in the pan first. We're going to do around, with a piece this thick, we're probably going to do around 70 to 80% on the skin, okay? Get that really crispy. So, like I said, we're not using butter for this, okay? Simply because there's a high butter content in the sauce, okay? So, about a tablespoon of oil in there, give it a swirl, okay? Really important with fish, it's quite a delicate process, okay? We don't want to be chucking that into a really steaming hot pan, okay? Fish needs to be cooked quite slowly. I would say, for fresh fish like this, we want to be cooking it to a temperature of around 40 to 45 degrees, no more, okay? Then we get quite a nice flaky piece of fish, nice and moist on the inside, okay? So now that we've got a little bit of heat in the pan, we're going to pop that skin side down, laying away from us, okay? And at this stage here, we can just apply a little bit of pressure, okay? Now applying that pressure, what that's going to do, that's going to stop the fish from curling up, okay? And that means that the whole skin is in contact with the pan, okay? And now what you're going to start to hear, and you'll feel as well, is the skin starting to pop. Okay, so as you can see, what's happened is here, we've just been cooking this on the skin, okay? So skin's crisping up, and the flesh is starting to begin to become quite opaque there, okay? So at this stage here, we just want to flip the skin, flip the fish over. You can just feel as you run your finger down there, really nice crispy skin, okay? What I don't want to do is have too much colour on the flesh side, okay? So what we're going to do is transfer that to a tray, and that's going to be popped into the oven for around 6 to 7 minutes. So we've now taken our potato cakes out of the oven, as you can see, nice and crispy. Our salmon's come out of the oven also, okay? That's around about 40 to 45 degrees internal temperature, so still nice and flaky on the inside. And we also have our sauce ready to go. So from now, we can start to do our plating. Okay, so we're going to start off by placing our fish cakes in the centre of the plate, okay? Sorry, fish cakes, potato cakes in the centre of the plate. Our salmon, just on one. Then our radishes, what we've done is we've really thinly sliced these radishes, okay? And then just pop them into some ice cold water. And then what you'll notice is they go quite crunchy, okay? So it gives a bit more of a crunchy element to the plate. We also have our sauce, okay, or our fricassee. So what I'm going to do is just drain away some of that liquid, okay, and then just start by dotting our peas and our broad beans around the plate, okay, like so. Then just take the sauce, drizzle of the sauce goes around the plate, okay, some on the potato cake, okay. I would say try and avoid getting too much on the top of the salmon because you still want that skin to be nice and crispy, okay. At this point we can then add our radishes, okay. And then I just finish off with a little bit of chive oil. So what I've done for this, I've taken some chives, I've blanched them in some water, okay, so a bunch of chives blanched in water for about 30 seconds, taken them out. I've then squeezed them so they're dry, added them into the blender with a couple of tablespoons of oil, and I've got myself this nice flavoured green oil, okay? So really nice for colour on the plate. Okay, so this is our finished dish, guys. We have the supreme of salmon, okay, with a broad bean and pea fricassee with some fresh mint going through there. We have our potato cakes and our fresh radish, okay? That's our finished dish. And I would recommend the Anna Sauvignon Blanc, so it's a Marlborough, New Zealand, from Corney and Barrow, just down the road in Newmarket. Would pair lovely with this dish. So get yourself to Newmarket and buy yourself a bottle of this. Thank you very much.